Hello and welcome to our first lecture for Microbiology for Health Sciences. I am your host, Dr. Chad Welsh. Chapter 1, Introduction to Microbes and Their Building Blocks. Now, we're going to be looking at what we refer to as the science of microbiology. Rule of thumb in sciences: if you get a big word, break it down into its parts. Microbiology. Ology, study of, bio, life, micro, really small. So, microbiology, the study of living things that are too small to see with the naked eye. We call these things that we're going to be studying microorganisms. Micro, small, organisms, a living thing. That gets to be a bit much to say, to type, to write. So the shorthand for it is microbe. It's accepted. Tomato, tomato, they mean the same thing, just different way of saying the same thing. Organisms that are too small to see with the naked eye. What we're going to be looking at: bacteria, archaea, which is another form of prokaryote similar to bacteria. And then we get into the eukaryotes, things like us that have a nucleus. The protozoa. The protozoa, which are too small to see with the naked eye for most parts, most times. Fungi, which, yeah, you could see. If you think mushrooms and things like that, you could see that with the naked eye. But there's going to be some fungi, and there's going to be some parts of the life cycle of a fungus that are microscopic. Helminths. Helminths. Think of these guys. These are going to be the tapeworms, the nematodes. Yes, tapeworms. It can be really, really long, measured in meters. But we study this in microbiology because part of its life cycle is a microscopic organism. And then finally, viruses. One of the things that we've noticed as we study microbes is that there's actually a lot going on. We want to think of that we're the pinnacle. We humans are the pinnacle of evolution. But microbes, as simplistic as the cells are compared to ours, still have a lot going on. Microbes are found everywhere. North Pole to the South Pole, every place in between. They've had a long time, whereas we are just new. As you see here, we humans are new to the party. Bacteria and archaea have been around almost 3 billion years. Eukaryotes, we didn't come around till about 2.5 billion years ago. So there's 500 plus million years where it's just back to the prokaryotes, bacteria, archaea. And those first eukaryotes are going to be nothing more than things like protozoa and amoeba. Plants, animals didn't come about until almost 1 billion years ago. So they've had a lot more time than we have here on planet Earth to evolve and to maximize what they can do with as little effort as they need. We like to think, when you look out your window and you see the trees and the grass, that it's the trees that are making it so you can breathe. Actually, no. What we're finding out as we study and we look at sediments, we look at the fossil record, an oxygenated atmosphere Probably would have been a little thin for what we're used to. Can be like being up at the top of a really tall mountain. Thin like that. But still, an oxygenated atmosphere predates most eukaryotes. And we have the prokaryotes, the bacteria, the archaea. We have them to thank. Early on, the prokaryotes and archaea, some of them had rudimentary pigments. And with those pigments, they had a rudimentary photosynthetic capability. Not quite as advanced as what we see nowadays with modern plants, but it was there. Took carbon, fixed it to make sugars. Carbon that was readily available, carbon dioxide. In the process of fixing this carbon, sequestering the carbon dioxide, they gave off oxygen. So you take these pigmented bacteria archaea. Not all the bacteria archaea, 3-4 billion years ago had this, some. You take them and you give them a few 100 million years. And all that waste product oxygen has to go somewhere. Thankfully, it went to the atmosphere. In our hubris as humans, we seem to think that everything revolves around us. All microbes out there of importance infect us. Well, unfortunately, to burst our bubble, turns out most microbes have no medical effect on humans. You've probably been exposed to hundreds, if not thousands, of different microbes, bacteria, fungi, viruses, whatnot, just today. You're not sick and you're not dying because most of what's out there, 90-something percent, 99% of the microbes out there have nothing to do with us humans. Now, yes, textbooks like this one we're using and other textbooks focus primarily on the ones that make us sick, because we humans find those the most interesting. We spend the most money studying those microbes, the ones that directly affect us. The ones that directly affect us we refer to as pathogens. Microbes that can infect, cause damage, disease to us, to animals, to plants. When the majority of microbes out there have absolutely nothing to do with us or plants or whatever. They're in the soil, they're in the water, they're in the air. They want nothing to do with us because we're either too hot, too cold, too wet, too dry, too acidic, too basic, whatever. The pathogens, the things that can hurt us, can infect us, they can all grow in that Goldilocks zone. They like how warm we are. They like our salinity. They like our acidity. They like how wet we are. Most of the things that we consider pathogens can't grow out in the environment anymore because they have evolved over millions of years to infect us mammals or to infect certain trees. It's interesting. You look out there in the real world. The majority of what causes us Americans to die, heart disease, cancer, you got to go down to 8th place till you hit influenza and pneumonia. Influenza and pneumonia rank only 8, and that's just barely above kidney disease, just barely behind diabetes. But you look outside of our borders, you look elsewhere in the world, and what you find is that lower respiratory infections, think pneumonias, think tuberculosis, now has worked its way up to 4th place, just behind COPD. COPD is a breathing. You have problems breathing, which can be exacerbated by some form of lower respiratory infection, pneumonia, tuberculosis, whatnot. HIV, diarrhea, number 7. Yes, bacteria, fungal, parasitic diarrheas kill millions of people a year out there outside of our borders. So you have those old school diseases like TB and, the diarrhea causing diseases. We understand how microbes, how pathogens can cause these diseases. We're learning the mechanisms. But we're also broadening what we're looking at, how we approach some of the older diseases, things that we just, assumed there was something just wrong with your body. MS, obsessive compulsive disorders. Maybe these were a bacterial and fungal infection that caused some form of inflammation. Inflammation that led to an autoimmune response. MS is your own immune system attacking the Schwann cells that wrap around your neurons, your nerves. Attack those so that they die off, and now your nerves are exposed to your internal environment. They're not protected. They're not insulated. Coronary artery disease. When I was at Louisville, University of Louisville Medical School, it's one of the things that a couple of the infectious diseases researchers were looking at. When patients would come in to get their heart valves replaced because of coronary artery disease, the plaque that was on the valves that interfered with their ability to function. They started taking these plaques apart, and the plaques are just buildup of platelets and blood cells and cholesterol. But when they started looking at them closer under microscopes, doing a DNA research on them, they found bacteria. Turns out that for a lot of people, coronary artery disease starts off with a bacterial infection of the blood. The bacteria settle out in the heart blood vessels, settle out on the valves. One of the chief bacteria that they found, I forget what percentage of the plaques that they studied, chlamydia pneumonia. Yeah, chlamydia pneumonia. The bacterial cause of the STD, chlamydia. Go figure. Allergies. Allergies is another one. Allergies is a first world problem. Allergies, for all intents and purposes, is not a big problem in the third world and developing countries. What we're starting to look at is the reason why we have allergies are such a problem here in the States and in Europe. We're too clean. We don't have the bacteria. We don't have the parasites. We don't have all of the viruses that are constantly there, attacking our body that our immune systems have to fight off. And we've spent millions of years developing an immune system that's its whole point to being. And now our immune systems are attacking self. They've got nothing else to do.